Everyone believed that once pirates dragged prisoners onto Tortuga, escape was impossible. But during one violent Caribbean storm, a handful of captive women used nothing but patience, courage, and the pirates' own routines to slip past the island's guards, cross deadly reefs in a leaking skiff, and accomplish an escape so unbelievable it shattered the terrifying legend of the most feared pirate haven in the Caribbean. Our goal is to have 100 pirates on the team. Subscribe and leave a comment below. That way, you'll be part of our team. Trace your finger along the map from Hispaniola toward the rocky island of Tortuga and picture the year 1678 as the smell of rotting oak, boiling pine tar, damp hemp rope, stale bilge water, salt-soaked timber, and charcoal smoke drifted across one of the most notorious pirate havens in the Caribbean. Tortuga's steep cliffs sheltered crowded anchorages where fast sloops of 80 to 120 tons rode at anchor beside captured merchant brigs, their hulls strengthened by massive white oak futtocks fastened with hand-forged iron spikes nearly 12 inches long and protected by fresh pine tar applied after careful careening along hidden beaches. Hundreds of sailors, privateers, smugglers, merchants, and pirates filled the waterfront beneath warehouses stacked with sugar, indigo, tobacco, powder barrels, sailcloth, and stolen cargo from every corner of the Spanish Main. Most people believed that once captives disappeared behind Tortuga's crowded docks, they never escaped alive. According to this fictional story inspired by the era, several women taken from a captured merchant vessel refused to accept that fate. Locked inside a heavily guarded warehouse built from thick tropical hardwood beams nearly 10 inches square, they quietly observed every detail surrounding them instead of surrendering to despair. They counted the changing watch, listened to the creaking block and tackle unloading cargo from nearby sloops, memorized the sound of each sentry's boots across the weathered planks, and noticed that every evening tropical rain turned the steep streets into rivers of mud. While armed pirates celebrated another successful voyage with rum, gambling, and gunfire echoing across the harbor, the prisoners began planning an escape that every experienced sailor believed was impossible. Their prison stood only a short distance from the waterfront, where dozens of pirate vessels rocked gently against heavy mooring lines woven from thick hemp nearly an inch in diameter. Every dawn, the captives watched crews preparing ships for sea with remarkable efficiency. Shipwrights hammered oakum deep into leaking seams using iron caulking tools before pouring boiling pine tar across the hull, creating a waterproof barrier capable of resisting months of tropical saltwater. Sailmakers repaired torn canvas beneath open sheds while coopers rolled fresh water casks weighing well over 200 pounds toward waiting boats. The women quietly studied this routine because every repeated movement revealed an opportunity. They learned exactly when warehouse guards abandoned their posts to help unload powder barrels, when drunken buccaneers staggered back from taverns before sunrise, and which narrow alley disappeared behind stacks of timber and spare anchors. One prisoner, the daughter of a merchant captain, recognized the tide tables from years spent at sea and realized that every third night the falling tide exposed jagged coral shelves beneath the cliffs, allowing careful passage where boats normally could not land. Another noticed that abandoned fishing skiffs were often left unsecured after dark because the pirates considered the reefs too dangerous for escape. What appeared to everyone else as meaningless routine slowly became a carefully assembled map. Their plan no longer depended upon overpowering armed men. It depended upon understanding Tortuga itself better than the pirates, who believed no captive could ever leave the island alive. On the chosen night, a violent tropical squall rolled across the harbor, bringing sheets of rain that drowned voices beneath the relentless roar of wind and surf. Lightning flashed above the crowded anchorage, illuminating dozens of masts swaying violently as blocks, deadies, and chain plates groaned under enormous strain. Pirate crews rushed toward their vessels to secure loosened anchors, reef heavy canvas, and tighten mooring lines before the storm dragged expensive prizes onto the rocks. The confusion created exactly the distraction the prisoners had waited for. Slipping through an unsecured service door left open during the frantic preparations, the women crossed muddy alleys while thunder concealed every footstep. They crawled beneath stacked spars more than 40 feet long, squeezed between piles of tar barrels, and avoided lantern light reflected from rain-soaked cobblestones. Reaching the shoreline, they discovered the abandoned fishing skiff almost submerged by rising waves. Its weathered hull leaked through several open seams where dried oakum had shrunk beneath the tropical sun, but inside lay a wooden bailer and 2 short oars. Working silently despite freezing rain, they stuffed loose fibers into the worst cracks, covered them with scraps of cloth soaked in sticky pine tar, scraped from a nearby repair shed, and pushed the fragile boat toward the exposed coral shelf revealed by the retreating tide. Behind them, Tortuga remained alive with shouting pirates, ringing bells, and cracking spars, yet no one noticed the tiny skiff disappearing into the darkness beyond the harbor. The sea beyond Tortuga proved far deadlier than the island itself. Powerful swells lifted the small skiff high above black water before dropping it violently into deep troughs where jagged coral heads waited just beneath the surface. Every breaking wave threatened to split the thin wooden hull apart, forcing the women to bail water continuously while rowing between narrow channels known only to local fishermen. Guided by the stars, whenever storm clouds briefly opened, they avoided reefs that had destroyed far larger ships than their fragile craft. Before dawn, they spotted the dark outline of a pirate patrol sloop crossing the entrance to the passage. The vessel, nearly 90 tons with pronounced tumble-home and towering square sails, carried armed lookouts scanning the sea with lanterns suspended from the shrouds. The women immediately stopped rowing and allowed the current to drift the skiff behind a cluster of wave-washed rocks where heavy surf concealed both sound and movement. They remained motionless for nearly an hour while the patrol searched nearby waters, its crew convinced that no prisoner could have escaped the island during such weather. Only after the pirate vessel disappeared into the gray morning mist did they continue their desperate journey, exhausted, soaked to the bone, and dangerously short of fresh water, yet now farther from Tortuga than any captive had ever dared imagine possible in this fictional tale inspired by the era. By the second day, the tropical sun became as dangerous as the pirates themselves. Fresh water dwindled to only a few mouthfuls, salt covered their skin, and every movement of the oars reopened the blisters across their hands. Flying fish occasionally landed inside the skiff, providing the only food they had since leaving Tortuga. Late that afternoon, they spotted a small English merchant brig of roughly 150 tons beating slowly against the trade winds with patched canvas and weathered oak sides darkened by years of pine tar. Fearing a trap, they remained hidden until the brig altered course after its lookout noticed the nearly drifting boat through a spyglass. The merchant captain, shocked to hear their account, ordered ladders lowered and the exhausted women brought aboard. His crew immediately provided fresh water, salted beef, dried biscuits, and blankets, while the ship's surgeon treated cuts caused by coral and splintered wood. Days later, safely beyond pirate waters, the survivors watched Tortuga disappear beneath the horizon. Their escape quickly spread through Caribbean ports, not because it destroyed the pirate stronghold, but because it proved that even the island most feared throughout the Golden Age could not imprison determined captives forever. Although this is a fictional story inspired by the world of 17th century piracy, it reflects a deeper historical truth. Tortuga's reputation for violence, lawlessness, and pirate power terrified sailors across the Caribbean, yet no fortress, harbor, or island was truly inescapable. Against overwhelming odds, patience, observation, and determination could become stronger weapons than muskets or cutlasses, proving that even the most impossible escape began with the courage to believe it could be done.